This show is brought to you by IslamicMusicHub.com.
Salam, here is my revert story and why I became Muslim. A little bit about me and my background. I'm a white British revert and I recently just reverted to Islam at 18 years old. I come from a non-religious background. When I was about 14, 15 years old, without exposing my previous sins, I was in a bit of a state. I had never been part of a religion and I hadn't seen life from a religious perspective. So I was basically doing whatever I pleased and I essentially lost myself in the dunya at a very young age. And because of that, I fell into depression and it got to a point where I needed to find peace. When I was 15, I was friends with a girl who was in care. And in care, she wasn't allowed a phone, which meant she would read a lot of books. And she was interested in religion, so she used to read quite a bit about Christianity, Orthodox Christianity, not so much about Islam. However, she would tell me a few things here and there, but not a lot. However, within her studies, it's like she had changed character in a good way, and I realised she started to become happier within herself, and it made me extremely happy, especially because she was going through hardship at the time. She began to cope with her situation from a religious perspective, which gave me a lot of hope. A couple of weeks go by, and this now looking back, I believe was my first sign. I live in a predominantly white area for context, with only about 1% being Muslim and very little Muslims around me. I had a dream, and I remember this dream because it stood out to me ever since. In my dream, my friend at the time and I were walking back from school, and as we were going home, we stopped at the shop, and there was a random group of, now I know because in my dream they didn't state their religion, Muslim women, who approached us and they said, "Allah loves you. Turn back to Allah. The day of judgment is near." After the dream, the next day in school, a girl in my class was discussing with someone else about how their cousin reverted to Islam. I found this quite a shock because where I'm from, Islam is not talked about, and the fact that it was being discussed in class after my dream really stood out to me, and I felt like it wasn't something I could ignore. A few days go by and the dream is constantly on my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Considering I'd never looked into Islam, didn't really know much about it and had a dream about it, but it began to be a frequent thing. I had 3 more similar dreams quite close together, and from that point I remember going to a bookshop and buying the Essentials of Islam, an English translated Quran, and the Sacred Path to Islam. And the more I read, the more I could feel the connection towards Islam in my heart. I just felt like it was meant to be. I had looked into Christianity a little, but I was instantly drawn to Islam. I felt like Islam was meant for me. Time went on, but I got lost once again. I found myself going through hardship at 17, but no matter how far I stepped away from looking into Islam, it would always come back to me. I'd always be reminded of Allah, and that's when I found myself drawn to Islam. Every bit of knowledge I gained brought me peace, and it almost came so naturally to me because everything made so much sense. I found the religion so beautiful, and there's a note in my notebook from 17th of April 2022 where I basically wrote down my thoughts, making dua, asking Allah to guide me, and I wrote, "If this is meant to be, I will take my shahada." It was quite nerve-wracking because I felt as if no one would understand me, not family nor friends, so I kept it to myself. But the day came, 17th of February 2024, where I needed to be true to myself. So I got in contact with the mosque and I got speaking to a sister who helped me take Shahada. Instantly, I felt the most at peace I've ever been in my life, Alhamdulillah. It's still quite new to my family, But I had told my mum a few times, so she was luckily has been accepting, alhamdulillah. But I just want to say to anyone who feels like they're in a similar situation, be true to yourself, have trust in Allah. Allah is the best of all planners. And if you're worried about your friends and family opinions, the fear of being judged, don't worry. Put your trust in Allah, and if it's meant to be, it will be, inshallah.
This recording was brought to you by IslamicMusicHub.com.